So that is a classic song by the Pogues, Fairytale in New York. Many in the UK consider it to be a Christmas song. Shane MacGowan, lead singer of the Pogues, just died last week at the age of 65, and he probably lived about 30 years longer than he probably should have. But that song sort of sums up a lot. It's a Christmas song to get us into the spirit. It's the fairy tale of New York, of which none of us are living right now, and it's a classic song. So, guys, we're scratching the barrel here, but we got a lot to talk about this week. Thoughts on the week before we get into anything? First off, we are the Three Angry Giant fans. It's your host, Scott, Giant Mike, and Cardone, and Angry Jets fan, Novak.
You got it right this time, Scott. Well
done. Got it right.
You finally got it right.
You said the words in order there, Scott. So we're off to a good start tonight.
We're flying.
So what I actually thought about was the fairy tale in New York is it's not really a Christmas song on face value, but then again, you got songs like Hallelujah, which are considered Christmas songs just because it has the word hallelujah and it has nothing to do with holidays or the Christmas.
So is that along the lines or parallel to not really a Christmas movie, or is a Christmas movie like Die Hard? The original Die Hard is like that's always up for debate. Is that a Christmas movie or not?
Common knowledge now, Die Hard is a Christmas movie, is it not?
I think it's got to be, or it covers a bunch of genres. I think so. Throw it in the Christmas category. Why not?
It's a tradition over here.
Absolutely.
I always say the Christmas season doesn't start until Hans gets thrown off Nakatomi Plaza. But
they're turning my car into Swiss cheese.
Well, if our listeners are watching on YouTube, Cardone has his Christmas tree up in the background, so we're all in the Christmas spirit. So
there it is.
Thank you,
Tis the season. Yes, got to get the mood going here on the pod.
That's right.
I mean, because we're all so angry, right? I mean, we were a little less angry because of the bye week, so I was kind of gray goosing it for no reason, just other than to enjoy a goose this weekend, But I'm sure Novak was throwing his up.
It feels like the Giants haven't played in about 5 months.
It does. Yeah, it's been the best 5 months ever.
Right.
But yes, I'm angry.
So to keep in the holiday spirit, let's give a shout out in a holiday sort of theme. So hello, Mount Holly, New Jersey. So Holly, it's a suburb of Philly, population 9,981, and it was originally called Northampton, but the hills were covered with holly trees, and it caused the name to be changed. They were so beautiful.
Wow.
It's also the home of Irving Fryer and Franco Harris. Well, it was the home of Franco Harris, I guess.
You do know it's only December 6th, right? Like you're blowing your Christmas load right now. You got just.
I think I'm like a month too late for the Christmas season. I started seeing Christmas like as soon as the last candy piece was gone at Halloween, Christmas shit started popping up all over the place. It's almost like we forget about Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is like pre-Christmas now. They just run it in.
If anyone tells me that they're done with their Christmas shopping like this early, I'm going to strangle you because there's no way.
And I really hate the fact that Mount Holly, New Jersey is a suburb of Philly. Can we not have anyone in New Jersey be a suburb of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, please? Because we're all New York fans. Jets, Giants, doesn't matter. We all hate Philadelphia. So don't lump New Jersey in with Philadelphia, please. That I have a problem with that right off the bat.
I get it.
That's a whole different country down there, though. South Jersey. It's just weird.
It is.
Like once you get past, it's two different. There's that fine line that runs through the Pine Barrens or somewhere in the middle of the state.
Yeah, my wife is from outside Atlantic City, and her whole family is Philadelphia Eagle fans.
Yeah,
and I know.
Yeah.
But still, I just have a hard time associating New Jersey with Philly because I hate Philly.
Oh.
So the Giants did have a bye this past week. In the week, we also released O'Shane Zimenez, our former third-round pick, and we named that Tommy DeVito will be the starter this week, even though Tyrod Taylor is going to be the backup. He was none too pleased with that. But guys, bye week. I mean, this was probably one of the most relaxing weeks I had. I didn't have to watch bad football. There was bad football being played, but I didn't have to watch bad football.
Did the Giants at any point last year go 3 weeks without losing a football game? Maybe I don't. It feels nice. I'm back to sanity.
Right. Yeah, if you count a couple DeVito wins in there and then a bye week.
Yeah.
I love how the bye week comes between a couple home games when we were on the road for like 3 months to start the season. Could have used it then. Yeah.
Well, last week we were talking about some of the disgusting games that were going on, and if you took the under of 30 points on 2 separate games, so it would have been the Jets Falcons and the Pats Chargers, you would have won the under for 2 complete games.
Yeah, you could have had what? You could have had a touchdown on the board as the over under and still gone under in that Clipper Pat game, right? It was 6 to Dick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Do you realize on Sunday the Rangers and the Sharks outscored the Jets and the Patriots?
There you go. Yeah. How come we couldn't get the baseball reference there? 6-0, and
Scott went straight hockey on that reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hockey's a good one too. Get some 6-0 shutouts. Why not?
Well, I mean that before, right? How they don't have, no one ever goes hockey. Like 2-0 is a very viable hockey score, but it's got to be
baseball.
It's always baseball.
Always.
Yeah.
It's got to be a 2-run homer all the time. Why not?
There was a 2-run homer because the Jets took the lead on the Falcons 2-0.
Oh God.
I was praying that game would end 2-0 because apparently there hasn't been a 2-0 game since like 1935 or something.
That's unbelievable. Which, by the way, that zero that New England threw up there now puts them in dead last in terms of points per game on the season. They're actually behind the Giants. And what's great? Wow. The Jets are third worst. Giants second worst, and now New England at 12.3 per game, dead last in the NFL. Giants 13-3. Jets 14-3. Look at these offenses, guys. That's what they're putting up there per game.
The Jets have more safeties in the first quarter than touchdowns. How about that? How about that stat right there?
That's awesome.
This is our lives, boys. This is New York football teams are doing this, and if the Bills continue on the path they are, 3 New York football teams are going to be out of the playoffs and sucking wind. Come January. Jets though had an interesting week. Boyle was cut. They picked up Ripien as their backup, and although Wilson is reluctant to play, he is going to get the start, I believe. So there was a whole controversy around this. Do you want to go into this, Novak?
I mean, I can. I'm getting first dibs here. I mean, you guys didn't even. I guess there wasn't a Giant game, so I guess I get to get that. But yeah, I mean. I did only the Jets segment, I think, a week early because I could have added this past week into my top 10 only the Jets moments. If you really think about it, I mean, we've got a coach who is texting with the town idiot and Joe Beningo about why he is a better coach than other coaches who don't have a quarterback and how he doesn't like Zach Wilson and all this stuff. The stuff that's going on with the Jets right now is, I mean, you don't see that in any other organization in the NFL. You just don't. And every week they can find a way to make themselves the laughing stock of the NFL. Every week. And every week they come up with something new and incredible. He went into the press conference today and said that Zach Wilson gives us the best chance to win. Oh, really? Really, Saleh? So the past 2 weeks when you started touchdown Timmy Boyle, he was not the best chance to win the game. Then why did you start him if that's the case?
I'm sorry. By the way, in my own head, as soon as I hear Saleh, all I can think about is the 4 of us. Saleh! That's all I can. I can't say that guy's name without saying Saleh.
He's still on the screen. I saw some snippets of that game. Every time I looked, he's on the screen again. Saleh is on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, it is just every day, and it all of it centers around the dick. Oh. It is all because of the dick, and he's not going to come back now. But yet I still got to hear a guy like Kirk Cousins went down with an Achilles injury 6 weeks ago. I haven't heard word one from this guy, and every week the dick is on Pat McAfee talking about something. Now he's like calling out the Jets for having leaks in the organization. He's talking about how as if he's the general manager. He has torpedoed this team to the point where they are just not a viable product, and it's all his fault. And I'm putting up with the dick. And I should have recognized it, and I fell into that in the preseason, and I shouldn't have, and I did, and I'm regretting it. And Mike knows this because we've talked about this. Mike said, I think at one point early in the season, he goes, "It is so hard to watch Novak want to root for Rodgers, but knows he's a dick, and he just doesn't know what to do."
Not sure what to do.
Now I'm stuck with this guy.
So do we have clarification on whether or not Zach Wilson was asked if he wants to start and he said no, or is this conjecture?
So I was holding this for later. If you want to know my opinion here, here's what happened. Someone said to Zach, "Hey, they're going to go back to you." And he was like, "I don't know if I want to play for this fucking team who has thrown me under the bus at every opportunity they get. And now they're asking me to save them yet again." And I think that got back to Saleh and Joe Douglas, and they because at the Saleh press conference, he said, "I just talked to Zach and he wants the ball." I think Zach got in there, realized that whoever he told got back to them, and then he went back in and said, "No, that's not true. I want to play." And they tried to sweep it under the rug, and it's just a complete one big Jet mess.
You're just talking some shit.
Yep. Exactly.
Makes sense. I mean, it's really the only thing that makes sense the way that laid out.
And you guys know exactly what you want to do. You're starting, Tommy DeVito next week. Good for you. You recognize what you need to do.
Well, and I think right there is a good point. I mean, we have a proven commodity of what we know we have with Tyrod Taylor. So I mean, he's going to get his 20 snaps in and get hurt again, but if he doesn't play, we know what we have. We don't know what we have in Tommy DeVito. I think you got to get Tommy DeVito some experience because next year, I don't think you can realistically go in with Taylor as your backup, no matter who the starter is, because the guy just isn't durable enough to last in this league. And what we're seeing throughout the league, and we'll get into this a little bit later, starting quarterbacks are going down like flies. You need to have a backup who can come in and play.
Yeah. It's a little damning on the Giants coaching staff to me that when Tyrod Taylor got hurt and we saw the first that we saw of DeVito in the Jets game, that he was not more ready to go than that. They didn't trust him to even throw the ball. With if you're the backup quarterback on a team and Tyrod Taylor's the starter, you better be ready to go.
Yeah,
I mean I was a little disappointed in that he's playing fine now. I'm not going to go nuts like it seems like other Giants fans are doing. I don't know if that's a little tongue in cheek or not, but he's fine. He's a average to below average backup in the NFL to me right now. There's nothing great. There's nothing bad about him. He's fine. When you lose your starting quarterback, you're dicked anyway. So, that's where I think he is. There's probably, probably half the league's backup or more are better than him. He probably doesn't belong on an NFL roster, but that's what we got. You might as well take a look at him.
But, look at the situation we had, even in Cincinnati with Browning. He comes in first week, doesn't look great. They don't really have him throwing the ball. And now all of a sudden, after one game against Jacksonville, people are like, "Oh, this guy is," they're giving him the Nick Mullins treatment. We were talking about that before coming on the air. And it's like the guy last week, you couldn't talk about how much of a downgrade he was from Burrow and how the Bengals are going nowhere. Now all of a sudden, this guy's a viable starter for the temporary time.
Sometimes it's just matchups or whatever. Who knows? I don't know. But I mean, the guy did play really well on Monday night. But it gets me to think as well. Sometimes how piss poor and pathetic the Giants are. I'll throw the Jets in there too because we're dealing with backups all season, and it's like, well, how are these other teams able to do it? How is a Browning able to come off the bench and throw for like 80-something percent completion, win a game on the road on Monday night? Like, how do these other teams do this? And we're dicking around with our situation. Is it coaching? Is it scheming, game planning? All those things combined. That's what I always notice. I'm like, how the hell are these other teams able to win games, let alone win difficult games on the road on a Monday night? It's unbelievable.
How many times have we seen since the 80s, LT and the gang knock a starter out and the backup comes in and we laugh at some guy's name we never heard of and we get beat.
Yeah.
It happened all the time.
Yes.
I think it goes back to what I think we were talking about this last week. The coaching staff says, we're not going to change our game plan. Yes, he's not as good as Joe Burrow, but we're going to just keep it going. We're going to let this guy make a play. We are not going to restrict him. We are not going to hold him back because we don't think he's as good. If he doesn't win, he doesn't win, but we're not going to, just hand the ball off 50 times and just chalk it up to, hey, he can't play.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm looking at Browning's numbers. They're better than 32 for 37, 354 yards. That's a 9.6 average, yards per attempt, a touch, no picks, a 115.5 quarterback rating. That's insane.
Incredible. And he wasn't throwing a check down on every play.
No.
He was actually dropping back, getting his second or third read and making a throw. It was impressive.
Yeah. And I want to say I at least one or two drops by Jamar Chase, I think, and a couple of those. So just impressive. I mean, and then on the other side, Scott, I don't know, you want to talk about Trevor Lawrence a little bit or that situation and maybe because I had a little segment just around player safety, all this bullshit with all the things going on in the league today. And, we're still seeing a lot of quarterbacks go down. We're seeing a lot of key players going down. It's not good for the league. It's not good for it's just not good for it, especially since this late in the season, heading into playoff football and stuff. We got major players, major quarterbacks, possibly not, on the pine. It's not good.
Hey, guys, we're going to go into this week, and there will be 10 quarterbacks out this week that were starters at the beginning of the season. So a third of the teams are going to have not their starters playing, not even 3/4 through the season. So you're talking, what is it, 2/3 right now, and maybe even less than that. And 10 teams are dealing with not backup quarterbacks, and that doesn't even count, situations like where you have the Raiders with Garoppolo being benched or Carr that could be out this week for Jameis Winston. So it could be 11, it could be 12 if you wanted to count Garoppolo, but this is just on injuries alone.
Yeah, and my question is, I don't know if I brought this up before, but my question is, so we have all these rules designed for player safety, right? So horse collar tackle, you get a flag for, roughing the passer. We've seen the things that draw a flag on roughing the passer. When's the last time you guys remember a player safety related flag coming out and the player who was the victim actually being hurt?
Well, that's a good point. It really is.
Everyone's getting hurt on. It's the player safety thing is bullshit. Oh my gosh, a hit to the head. Flag. Oh, are we going to throw him out of the game or not? And the quarterback just stands up and walks back to the huddle, kind of chuckling. It's.
How come there was no unnecessary roughness on the lines guy, or the NFL chain guy? Who am I trying to say? In the Saint line
the
game,
guy
right?
that got his leg shattered.
Yeah, leg got snapped.
Yeah.
There was no flag on that play.
No, the plays where people are getting hurt, there's no flags on these plays. The player safety thing is a complete fallacy. It's a lie to soften up the game so offenses can score more. Has nothing to do with player safety.
Hey, if you remember the hit that Carter Coughlin put on the return guy the last game we played, he got retroactively fined $6,000 for that hit, even though he wasn't flagged for it. Because it was a hard hit.
Yeah, you get fined for hard hits now. And then you go back and you look at the images that the NFL uses to promote itself. It's just people getting blown up.
There was remember the Crunch Time video?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Back in the 80s or 90s on DVD. That was a great Christmas stocking stuffer. Like, oh yeah, I got the Crunch Time video. Yeah. Just 27 minutes of guys getting their head ripped off, long after the play was over.
Yeah,
great stuff.
Like we lost Trevor Lawrence this week, right? Is that the newest one?
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Was there a flag on that play?
No. I think he went down like basically his own lineman.
There was no need for a flag. It was clean.
Right.
Yeah.
No rule saved Trevor Lawrence. Go back through all the other injuries. Daniel Jones.
Well, Daniel Jones and Rodgers both had non-contact injuries. You know, they were so
on grass fields too, right? Jones
Jones
tore his ACL, and no, Jones that was in Vegas.
Rodgers was at Met Death though, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rodgers was Met Death,
opener.
but like Lawrence, that's grass.
Yeah,
Trevor Lawrence. I mean,
4 Achilles injuries in Met Death this year.
Wow. And add Sheps last year. That's 5.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So they changed the turf this year, right?
They did.
They did.
To one that apparently causes more.
Yeah. The turf with a bunch of mini bear traps in it.
We were talking earlier about the way teams are looked at, and the Giants this week have a Monday Night Football game against the Packers, who now all of a sudden everyone is talking about as media's darling is the team on the rise, ready to make the playoffs. Jordan Love, who was taking crap, not even 4 weeks ago, now all of a sudden is the hottest quarterback in the NFL. They're saying. So it's like the up and down wave that we're riding. Of course, the Giants are now hitting the pack right at their peak. So we'll see what happens on Monday night. We're terrible on primetime games. I don't know what you guys think about this one. I don't see a path to victory. I think Tommy DeVito's going to get sacked 7 to 8 times again, and it's probably going to be another ugly game.
Yeah, they don't win that game. I mean, that's a pack win all the way. Like you said, a lot of times it's your good fortune or bad fortune when you play a team in their season, and Green Bay is playing their best football of the year right now. Jordan Love is, of course, he's the second coming since Favre and Rodgers. Now he's one of those guys. I don't see how the Giants are able to compete in this game. There's on paper, I don't see anything. There's nothing that they're going to be able to game plan. It doesn't matter they're coming off a bye. That has nothing to do with anything. I'll give my score now. I wrote it down right before we came on. I got Green Bay winning big, guys. I got Green Bay 31-13. Got a little transpose of the numbers there, but I think they're going to be able to score pretty right up and move the ball up and down the field pretty good. I have to admit, I haven't watched a ton of Green Bay in the last month or so, other than just red zone stuff and whatnot, and seen some of their statistics and stuff. But they seem to be playing their best ball right now. Jordan Love looks like he's pretty comfortable now. I think they're if the playoffs started today, they'd be a 7 seed, I believe. Do I have that right? I don't have it in front of me, but
this is what gets me though about the NFL. I mean, the Packers to me are one of the most thoroughly forgetful teams that are out there this year. And they went on a whole segment on Sunday night comparing Jordan Love at this point in his career to Aaron Rodgers. They got the same amount of touchdown passes, completions. It was basically their stats mirrored each other. Jordan Love is not Aaron Rodgers. And matter of fact, earlier in the year, people were saying that Jordan Love shouldn't even be the starting quarterback for the Packers. Now all of a sudden he's turned a corner, as they say in the sports industry. I think the Giants will lose this game. I do think the Pack are a completely overrated team who are playing well right now, but I think they're still overrated. And I think this game's going to be a lot closer than people think. And I think it's going to end up being 20-14 Packers.
So I'm sort of along the same lines with you, Scott. I think Green Bay's been fortunate. They're on a little bit of a run. They're playing well, but this is a team in beating Detroit and Kansas City that is just ripe to get beat. And any NFL football team would probably step up and beat them on this coming Monday night. The Giants, as we've established, are not an NFL football team. So that's unfortunate because I think this is a team that is just, to me, it's like one of those Dallas teams from the past late in the year when they've come off like 5 in a row and they're just like this huge blob of bubble, they're about to burst. That's what this game feels like to me. But no, I think the Green Bay beats us. It probably is going to look convincingly. I think on the field, our defense is going to play well. I think we're going to give Jordan Love some problems, but we just won't be able to hang for 60 minutes with these guys. So I've got Green Bay winning this one 28-17.
A lot of points for the Giants there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, all I know is you guys made the In the Hunt on the bottom right-hand corner from CBS this week. So I don't know what you're talking about, but your playoff aspirations are still there.
They're intact.
I have to laugh about this, Novak. I was watching NFL Network. We were not in the hunt. We were still alive, which like is probably the most apt way to put it because the Panthers have been eliminated.
Oh, you mean the mathematical? We're not mathematically eliminated yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
still alive.
Christ, yeah.
Not to burst your bubble, but there were two teams not in the hunt, which was the Cardinals and the Panthers. But you were listed as in the hunt above the Bears and the somebody else. The Commanders, I think.
We're like the Will Ferrell character in Austin Powers who fell down the cliff.
Yes.
I'm still alive. I'm still alive down.
So because of that, because you're in the hunt, I think you're going to play really well this week. And I actually really want to pick the Giants here. I do, but they're not going to win. And I have the Packers. I have a 24-17 game going into like the last minute of the game with a pick six or something like that. Giants lose 31-17.
Oh. Tommy DeVito throws pick sixes?
Something's going to happen crazy where you're going to be in it. Everyone's going to start getting whipped up that the Giants might be back in it. And the last second, Packers are going to run away with it.
We are just about at the point where I'm going to call this. Somebody for Green Bay on defense is going to make a play and give us this back. We're right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're right there. It's just about to happen.
Has DeVito earned that yet? Has he actually earned?
Of course not. But
but I'm saying like has he earned the recognition that players even know that he does that? Is that getting around the league?
Well, that's a good point. Maybe they just don't even know.
I mean it that way, like in terms, Mike. In terms of like, do players even like know? Is it sort of like the Aaron Rodgers in the preseason thing? Like, who are you? I don't even know your name. Remember when the guy was trying to talk trash? He's like, I don't even know who you are. Like if DeVito's doing it, I could see someone say, who the fuck? I don't even know who you are. What's your name?
So those on the audio pod, we're doing the hand gesture that DeVito does.
Yeah.
The
I'm
celebration.
not even good at it because I'm not.
I don't even know the.
Hey.
Yeah. Fuck it looks like the fucking Johnny Manziel.
The money sign.
Yeah. Idiot.
Yeah, my grandmother always did that, but she did it with both hands. Hey, mafungo. So, Jets Texans this week. Texans been on a roll lately. CJ Stroud looks good. They did take a big L this past week, but other than that, they had been rolling. Now Tank Dell is out for the season with a broken leg. But we got Zach Wilson back in the fold there, Novak. Yeah. So I expect big things from the Jets offense. They're going to at least pump out 10 points.
We've got the Ken Albert, Jonathan Vilma team probably on this game again. The lowest ranked commentators. What do you want me to say? This team can't score. Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, Zach Wilson, Brett Rippon, who they just brought in. It doesn't matter who they throw out there. They're not scoring. So and CJ Stroud looks like the real deal. And they're more than in the hunt. Actually, the Texans, I think, are probably in a really good chance to actually do some damage. I think this is a blowout game. The Jets are in the middle of their late season swoon where they're going to lose 10 straight probably. So I'm going to say that the Texans are going to win this game 29-12. 4 field goals from Zerline.
29-12.
I mean, why not? I can't have every game be 24-17. I gotta.
You're not going.
Mike went with a 15-8, I think, last week, and he was damn close.
I almost hit it.
You did.
Holy shit! You're right, Mike. There was an 8 up there. Wait, Novak, you're not going 6 safeties in that game. You're going 4 field goals.
I'm going 4 field goals. Yep.
All right.
I just want another chance to do the baseball reference. I want it to be like 5-2 at one point again or something. Like that.
I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the Jets.
So you're very close to my score. I have the Texans winning this 30-10.
It's a big gap there. Looking at, I may have to adjust my score. I have the Texans winning because, God help me, I just can't bring myself to take the Jets to win an NFL football game right now. It's like the Giants, the same thing. I mean, it's, the Jets. It's almost impossible to see them scoring double-digit points. It really is. So this week, I don't think it's any different. I'm going to add in a little extra knowledge here. I don't know if you guys weren't aware, the weather on Sunday in Met Death is supposed to be horrific. They got one of those. which is just so apropos, Novak. I'm going to throw a comment out here around the growing up, like in the 80s, and when I had season tickets, used to go to Giant game, never missed a Giant home game, and especially early in the season, it was typically there weren't as many primetime games, right? So it was always 1:00 games in September and October. And Giant games, we were spoiled, man. The Giants always got those beautiful Sunday, September afternoons, 72 degrees and sunny. And they always rotated like on and off. And so after the Jets moved into what was then Giant Stadium, the Jets always got those dreary, rainy bullshit.
I was waiting for you to go there.
So my brother Greg and I, we would always laugh like, thank God we're not up there this week. It was always alternate weeks where they always did home and away. The Jets were like fucking Danny DeVito in Twins, where all the pureness and the goodness went into Julius, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, on these perfectly sunny, bright weather days. The Jets always got the crap that was left over, which went into Vincent from Twins, right? And that's what he saw in the mirror every day. So the Jets are going to have one of those just horrific weather games and dates up at Met Death. I got the Texans winning, but I had them a little bit high. I'm going to lower my score a little bit just because of the weather factor, I think. And I'm going to go Houston. I'm going to go 19-9.
19-9.
Yeah.
Scores are awesome.
I originally had a little bit higher, but I'm factoring in some wind and rain up at Met Death. So keep the score even lower. Because I watched the Weather Channel like
you are a weather guy. I was gonna say you have
it.
inside knowledge. I went 30-10. I had no idea. To me, it's gonna be 60 and like mild or something.
No, it's supposed to be 100% chance of rain. Weather? This is one of those. This is almost a borderline nor'easter kind of thing that they got going.
And it was last week too. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Of all their games, other than the first game of the year, it's been a rain game pretty much every week at Met Death.
Yeah. Novak, I know you know this because you've watched your whole life, but is it the Jets at home? They always get the shitty weather,
all the time,
the rainy weather. It's amazing how the football gods they can't piss on this team enough. They have to just continue the misfortune of this franchise. It's incredible. I said when the Giants were good, they used to we never sat in the rain. I went up there for 2 decades. Can't remember like one time maybe had to break the poncho out. Always bright and sunny for Giant games. It was amazing.
Yeah. When I had season tickets during the Rich Kotite years.
Coach game against the Seahawks, that was just a deluge. I think it was the first time they broke out the Ray must go
nice
chant.
Yeah.
So I desperately want to pick the Jets because I have to, because I picked them last week in an attempt to close the gap with Novak, and that failed, although I thought I was pretty good early. So, the standings now, by the way, are Novak 17-6. Cardone and Cost are 15-8, and I'm 14-9. Now, so I desperately wanted to pick the Giants or the Jets this week. It just can't. I can't fall any further behind either. I got to protect my behind. So I'm going Houston, and I think this is just another one of these giant Jet games where the game will be ugly. It'll get mucked up, and Houston will win. 22-8.
Loves
the Jets are going to score late, and Salah's going to go for 2.
So we had a lot of stuff going on in the NFL and in college. We might want to get to the college football situation there, but what I wanted to talk about here is the fact that we had Dom, the security guard that we all know now in the Philly 49er game, where you have a player getting ejected on a team and a non-player causing that ejection from the sideline. And guys, what keeps a team from bringing someone on board to the sideline to antagonize someone like a CeeDee Lamb or a, think about some of the hotheads out there right now. I mean, who you could bring someone out there just to poke Josh Allen or something and hope he retaliates against you. And I don't know if you guys saw what Greenlaw did for the 49ers. He basically pointed. And he was pointing to someone behind the fat security guard and just happened to graze his cheek with his finger. And that was enough to warrant him getting tossed. I think this sets a really bad precedent for the NFL and for the way sideline interactions are handled. First off, why is head of security getting involved in a sideline scuffle. Period.
This is a wild story, guys, right? Because I was out with a couple friends watching the game, and we didn't have the audio. They had, believe it or not, we had the freaking Panther Buckgate audio on, so we couldn't tell what the hell was happening because we only saw obviously what was going on in the game. We didn't have the audio, and then to come to find out that this guy's director of security, we were yucking it up on the thread saying this is like a bouncer at a nightclub, the one initiating the fight and the brawl, and being the guy that's starting everything. But you're right, Scott. I thought about this also. Why doesn't a team then just hire a hitman to like? This is like what it's like Shooter McGavin when he hired the guy to drive the Volkswagen and mow down Happy Gilmore. What's the difference? Just hire a guy, pay him for the week, and just antagonize someone on the field and hopefully get them under their skin and get him ejected. Dom, the security guard. We know him by first name now, Big Dom or whatever.
Yeah, that was one of the best lines Peyton had on Monday night. He said, Why are we calling this guy by his first name, Dom? Like we're supposed to know who he is. Why do we know his name?
This is an awful precedent. And I think, again, the NFL officials on the field screwed something up so badly. The NFL has to get control of this right now for all the reasons you guys are saying. This is going to embolden fans on the field, not just security guards, but anyone at field level is going to be emboldened to talk shit, get in the way of the players. You know, if they think, wow, what a hero I could be, I could get this guy thrown out of this game. You know, this is terrible. And the NFL immediately has to say right now, if you are interacting, you got to protect the players here. If you're interacting with a player and you're not a member of the team on the sideline, if you're security for the stadium or whoever, you're gone. You're run, and it doesn't matter who you are. You can't penalize the players for this kind of thing. You just can't. There's no way that somebody not in the game should be able to do anything like that unless they're being assaulted, which, as Scott pointed out, is, you know, this is a terrible, terrible precedent. You cannot get, you know, I didn't mind a flag. I'm fine. You know, you shouldn't, as a player, you know, you shouldn't be over there. They should be minding your business, not pointing to fans. You stay on the sideline to shut up. But the ejection from the game raises this as a whole level of the players are now going to be targeted by people on the sidelines.
You know, my take on this is I think if this guy is your average Joe, he looks like Phil Dunphy, Devin Tier. I don't think this is the story. I think because he's Big Dom and he's got a gold chain and he's a Philadelphia douche that this becomes a thing. Anyone else, and this is not a story, we're not talking about it. No one's talking about it in the media. It's because the NFL is like warming up to this story about this security Dom, the security guard. I really think that is part of the issue here.
That's a great point.
Well, and you know what didn't help things, and I know people like Greg Olson as a commentator. I personally do not, but I thought his support of Dom and the way he handled that whole situation was ridiculous too. He was sort of celebrating the fact that there was a fat guy on the sidelines of Philadelphia egging people on. He was not helping the situation in real time. He was talking about and there goes Dom. It's like, well, how the fuck do you know his name? You know, what the hell are we talking about here?
Exactly.
Dom should be let go from his job. That's unacceptable. And that the more, you know, it's, you know how the NFL and all sports made this decision, I guess 100 years ago, that when a streaker comes on the field, they're not even going to show it. Mm-hmm. Camera goes away. They don't want to embolden anyone to do it. This is the same freaking thing. This is the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. We've highlighted this on the pod. I don't know what season it was, but yeah, gone are the days of Morgana the kissing bandit, where the camera, where it was a damn highlight show, right? Yeah, I love that one where the camera just will lock in on Salah every chance they can get, when there's a guy running on the field and you can't show them. But yeah, this is a wild precedence that happened. But Big Dom, the security,
Big Dom, yep.
Big Dom.
Yeah. Philadelphia Central Casting he came from.
There you go.
Seriously.
Yeah. And a guy for the 49ers was ejected from the game.
One of their best players, Greenlaw, is like He's probably their best defensive player aside from Bosa, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, that's a brutal loss. I mean, now the 49ers obviously, quickly overcame that as they dominated Philly, but at that time in the game, that's ridiculous.
Well, and again, that's one of my pet peeves with Olsen. Olsen was like, well, they just fired Philly up, and I think on the aftermath of that incident, I think Philly went and scored a touchdown. And of course Olsen was going on about, oh, look at the Philly with the emotion from the Big Dom situation. It's like, and look what happened at the end of the game, and you didn't hear him talking about what happened then with the emotion.
Yep, just drop it.
And the telecast is hyping this thing up, because if you watch it in real time, it doesn't look like that big of a deal. But when they do it in slow-mo and Greenlaw hits his fat face and it's like rippling like a wave in the ocean, then it becomes a big story.
Awesome. If you do, though, doesn't it look like he's pointing past him?
It does.
Just happens to graze his face?
He wasn't trying to hit him. He just, his fat face got in the way of him pointing at something, and then you saw the cheeks rippling. I mean, that's why it became a thing.
By the way, what was lost in all of that is Jalen Carter actually threw a punch at a 49er player, but he was not ejected. So
not ejected.
Punches don't matter.
No.
So
unreal.
I know we all talk about college. We have this podcast lately and talking about the way we've gotten more into college. What are your guys' thoughts on Florida State being left out? I will say this. And I think both Michigan and Washington have gotten screwed in this process, because now Michigan has to play Alabama. And for some reason, Washington has to actually play basically what's a home game for Texas going to the Sugar Bowl when they're the better ranked team. Mm-hmm. But Florida State guys, they did what was asked of them. And what I have a bigger problem here isn't the whole criteria of whether or not they're a better team than the other ones that are in there. It's that they were leapfrogged after winning, and they put on a great defensive display. And what college football is saying is that defense, fuck it. Defense doesn't matter. Just like the way the NFL's going, defense does not matter. So Florida State held a team that scores over 30 points a game to 6 points, basically had like 6 sacks, bunch of tackles for loss, won this game going away in commanding fashion. So would this diminish what the 85 Bears do and things like that? I mean, this is what's,
Scott, it was not only a great defensive performance, but it was a clutch defensive performance. They had to have it. Mm-hmm. I think they knew they had to win big, and their only chance to do that was to keep who are they playing?
Louisville.
Yeah, it was to keep Louisville in single digits. That was their only chance to win that game big, and by God, they put on a show. And to not include that as part of the team effort, I think you're right, and I hadn't even thought about that part of it. But you're spot on.
Yeah, it's a crime, man. When we, Sunday before the selection was made, we had a couple different, we had a text thread going. I had a couple others going around, and everyone's trying to predict the 4, right? And FSU I had them locked in after winning you can't do better than undefeated. They win their conference championship game the night before. And to your point, Scott, I was entertained by watching that defense. Who doesn't love dominating defense? I mean, we're so brainwashed by today's offensive happy, point obsessed brand of football at both the collegiate level and the NFL that no one appreciates dominating defense. And why? I couldn't wait to see FSU's defensive series every time Louisville had the ball. I was that 55. He became the guy. I can't think of the guy's last name. The linebacker on FSU. You talk about a dominating effort. That guy was all over the field on Saturday night. That game happened to be here in Charlotte, so a little extra kind of interest in it. Being that it was here in our hometown. But to your point, guys, they got robbed. FSU, they should be tearing. They should be just with pitchforks and just barreling down the doors and walls of the committee, asking for an explanation. I mean, they got robbed.
And you have to know, if Georgia had beaten Alabama, just assume that Florida State is in, because what they would not push out the one undefeated team, because it would have been Georgia, Washington. Who am I forgetting?
Michigan.
Texas or Michigan.
Yeah. Michigan and FSU.
And FSU.
It says Mike's wearing his Michigan shirt.
Yes. How am I forgetting Michigan? The one great team. You know that they would not have pushed out the one undefeated team to get a team with one loss in there. The only reason that FSU was not in is because Alabama beat Georgia.
Because it was Alabama.
That is bullshit. That shouldn't have mattered. FSU is the third team in under any circumstance. And the only reason that Texas and Alabama is in is because Alabama beat Georgia. And I have such a hard time with that, on top of the fact they are taking their own matters, their own beliefs into the decision. Mm-hmm. Because you can't tell me that Florida State was definitely going to lose to Michigan. Yes, they probably would have. But any given Saturday or any given Sunday, and they took their own choices into that. I have such a hard time with this. I'm so pissed off that Florida State is not in the Final Four here.
Here's the thing, guys. Let me.
Go ahead.
I was going to say real quick, Scott. I'm sorry, real quick. So think about this. If that entire weekend, let's just say that was the middle of the season, and those games happened, and the rankings were exactly the same pre-game. One, Georgia does not fucking fall 5. They lose to Alabama. They're not falling from 1 to 6.
Absolutely
we know that.
Not.
They're not.
Nope.
And FSU winning, and I'm just saying, let's just say this was, mid-season, October, November, pick whatever the records you want, but just the rankings I'm getting at like where the rankings are. And FSU is not falling a couple spots when they're undefeated and haven't won their game against Louisville. So that's what's bullshit. We know the fucking politics of the committee just because it's playoff selection weekend. That's what I have a problem with. We know it's bullshit.
Well, and you have ESPN involved in both airing the selection show as well as being basically the host network for the SEC. Having a lot of sway in what's going on here. I just along what you were saying, Chris. I mean, that was my thought process too. First off, if you're going to drop Florida State down like you did, then Georgia has to be better than Florida State. I mean, that's the thing. Florida State all of a sudden just goes to 5, but Georgia goes to 6 after losing for the first time in 3 years. And everyone forgets about the fact that Alabama needed a 4th and 31 miracle against a very mediocre Auburn team.
God,
the week before.
That passage has been incomplete.
I mean, look, we all know, and anyone that watches college football will know the 4 best teams, if you forget records, are going to be Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. Yeah. There's no, in my mind, there's no debate. So you can't tell me that you're taking the 4 best teams, because if that's the case, you're taking those 4. But you can't do that because the other teams won the games they were supposed to play. They need to be in. Florida State got fucking robbed.
What I don't understand is why does Texas get so much credit for winning their game, but Florida State doesn't get credit for beating the number 14 team in the country? I mean, who did Texas beat? They beat Oklahoma State.
A bad
Texas
Oklahoma State team.
Texas is getting a lot of love for a win they had in October over an Alabama team that obviously has gotten better as the season went on. Alabama would blow the doors off of Texas right now. If they played right now, it's for Texas to get that much love for that win. Again, Scott said there's a lot of ESPN SEC bias going on there, but it's crazy. I mean, this is kind of like the thing I talked about in the year about the officials earlier in the year is we just need to know the rules up front. Like Novak said, it's you say, well, some things get messed around because we want to make sure the 4 best teams are there. That's a lie, because, as he said, everyone I think would agree, as Novak said, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and Ohio State in that order, probably. Are the 4 best teams right now. So, so if it's not that, then what is it? And there's no question now that one of the criteria is an SEC school is getting into this thing.
Well, and what bothers me too, because I think Novak's dead on. If Georgia wins that game against Alabama, Florida State's in. But here's the other thing. I'd be pissed if I was Georgia. Georgia lost for the first time in 3 years, and they drop from number one to completely out. We've seen times when people have lost their conference championship and still stayed in the playoff. And here's the thing. If you're a team now, do you want to play in your conference championship? All it does is really it can only cause you to drop if you're the better team.
I have never sweated a game against flipping Iowa so much in my life. That game is why are we playing it? I mean, you're better off to if they're going to take a one-loss SEC team, then be one loss, be in that other division in the SEC. Don't play in the championship game, and you're kind of set up.
Well, because I would think losing in your championship game would hold a lot more weight than losing in the middle of like September. But for some reason, when you lose in September, that's okay. But if you lose in the final game against a better team than someone that lost in September, you're fucked.
Yep. I mean, I heard someone make an argument this week for lock in the records and the thoughts of the committee before the championship games.
Yeah.
So that's almost the opposite of that.
Yeah.
But you almost can't do that. They can't unknow what they know. And it's clearly they're going by the eye test. The eye test is the biggest thing for them.
Except the eye test does not take into account defense, apparently.
It doesn't take into account defense, and it doesn't take into account, what do they want out of this thing? As you guys mentioned with Florida State, to me, that is as much bullshit as that is in favor of the SEC. That is a giant blow to the ACC conference, and more than just keeping them out of the playoffs this year, you got to recruit. Looking at Clemson, looking at whatever, and thinking, gosh, we could go undefeated and win the conference and not go to the playoff. That kind of thing gets thought about.
Absolutely,
of course it does.
That's a black eye on the ACC, and for no fault of their own.
Novak, I'm going to ask you this because I'm not going to bring it up if it's one of your pet peeves. Were you going to talk about the Sportsman of the Year and your pet peeve?
That was my pet peeve.
All right, no, go ahead then. No, you're fine with that then. I'm not going to bring that up then. I was going to move on from that to the pet peeves. So I will start with Novak since I've teed it up a little bit.
You did teed it up. You teed it up. So thank you. So all four of us have our thing, right? Cardone is, about the not kicking the field goals. Scott is about the officiating. Mike is about gaslighting. And clearly my thing all along has been Deion Sanders. I've talked about him like 5 times in this podcast. I have been so annoyed by this Deion Sanders obsession with college football and the whole world. And on top of the fact, he is our sportsperson of the year. Are you kidding me that this guy is the line of sportsperson of the year? This is the guy, let's not forget, that came into a college and basically kicked to the curb people whose whole life, or probably in the last 10 years, was to get a scholarship to the University of Colorado to play football. Basically told them, you suck. I'm going to use this ridiculous transfer portal, which has killed college football, and I'm going to bring in my own kids, and I'm going to create this more clicks than win philosophy, and won 4 fucking games over, and has all of a sudden turned around a program as Sportsperson of the Year, is the most ridiculous joke I have seen in sports this year. I am so annoyed by Deion Sanders and what this has become. So yes, that is my pet peeve. Go on, talk about it, because you guys know, I texted you the minute I heard about this. I was so pissed that this guy is our Sportsperson of the Year.
Well, it's not just that. It's the fact that shouldn't Sportsman of the Year, Sportsperson of the Year also have some decorum around them, so it's not like a clown show?
Exactly.
You would think.
That's something I don't understand either.
Sportsmanship is like sports. It should be Sportsman of the Year. Let's be honest. No one sportsperson's stupid, but yeah, it's the word sportsman is right in there. Deion is not a sportsman by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, you could have taken Caitlin Clark, Novak Djokovic, all these people that did something for their respective sports to make it something. Rory McIlroy, I think, could have been in the mix there too, because he was fighting against the LIV and all of that. There are so many places they could have gone. He is the antithesis of sports person of the year.
Yeah, it's there. You mentioned it there in your breakdown, Novak. There's a three-headed monster killing college football right now. It's funny. Like 2 weeks ago, we're like, college football's the best. We all watch it for 2 weeks, so we're like, fuck this.
That's true.
We're angry about this now too. But the three-headed monster, and Deion Sanders is one of the heads, and it's paying the players, and it's the ridiculous transfer portal. These three things are like a three-headed beast that's eating college football from the inside out.
Yep, and it's only going to get worse.
I don't know what the criteria is on how they vote for this bullshit, to be honest. So I can't even comment that much about it, other than, to your point, Novak, like what is this guy? I'm sure there has to be something involved in some way, shape, or form, like what this guy's doing for the community or something, maybe off the field or something to that caliber or that degree. I mean, Deion Sanders, get the fuck out of here with that. Yeah, there's, like you said, there's so many. You could rattle off at least 5 to 10 more. 5. I mean, like 20 people. Where it's one of those things where I couldn't tell you who won it last year, because I don't know how significant this thing is. One of those things. But Novak, when you sent that text, same thing. Like I got nauseous immediately. Like, God damn it! Like, come on! Like it's just, there's got to be someone more deserving than this Yahoo. You said like he did more at Jackson State than he did for Colorado, for crying out loud.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would have totally given him Sportsman of the Year. He turned around the whole vision, the whole opinion of the HBCU. He did such a great job there, did amazing things for Jackson State, brought them millions of dollars, and they deserve that. I loved him when he was at Jackson State, and he went to Colorado, and just I'm so beefed about this whole situation.
Well, you have like the World Cup happened this year with the women's side. You had Coco Gauff in U.S. Open winning. You had a lot of different stories that were out there that you could have chose. You could chose the two-way player Ohtani, and what he's been doing. Yeah. And yet you choose Deion Sanders for 4 wins. That's the amazing thing. It's 4 fucking wins. It proves that the hype machine is real.
Yeah, the hype machine is real now. It's not even, it's taken over reality. There is no reality. Deion Sanders is essentially the guy who volunteered to coach his son's football team to give his son more playing time. That's pretty much what he is to college football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's embarrassing.
As a parallel today, Taylor Swift was announced as the Times Person of the Year.
It does make sense.
I actually, you're right, Mike. I really don't have a problem with that.
She's the most famous person in the world.
Yeah,
she is.
Right.
I want a little more gravity for the Person of the Year.
Person
we've given it to like states of the head.
Who are the other
heads
nominees?
Of states? We've given it to other people. It's like we're giving it to Taylor Swift.
The other nominees were like the Pope and. Can't think of anyone more important.
Yeah.
Cardone, pet peeve?
Yeah, I have a brief one and a pretty small one this week. It was something that came up. I'm sure we've talked about it before, but I think it bears repeating and mentioning again. I'm talking specifically about, guys, what the fuck is, does anyone know how to really describe or identify what intentional grounding is anymore in this league? Or in college, for that matter. I mean, there used to be, we're told that there's 3 distinct pieces of criteria for this penalty to occur. And what drives me insane, I was watching, and Novak, I don't know if you watched the App State Troy game. There was a specific, my pet peeve really generated from this particular, it came from that play, or from that game rather. Joey Aguilar, who's the quarterback for App State, was early in the game. And before App State got blown out by Troy, but when the game was still close, the weather conditions were as a rainy day playing in Alabama there. So Aguilar, deep, in Troy territory, I think it might have been a 3rd down, drops back to pass in the pocket. So he's definitely in the pocket, goes to throw a forward pass over the middle, and it was one of those where the ball just, I think it looked like he wanted to bring it back down, and recock his arm, and the ball just slipped out of his hand, and the ball went forward by like 20 yards on the ground. So all of a sudden, you weren't even thinking like, oh shit, that could be intentional grounding. He threw it in the middle of the field where there's players all over the place. The ball slipped out of his hand, and all of a sudden, off camera, you see, the officials talking, and next thing you know, there's a flag box on the broadcast, and they're calling the intentional grounding. I fucking flew out of my chair thinking that entire play was unintentional. The ball slipped out of his hand, no matter how you slice it. So. And then I saw a couple other instances on Sunday, doesn't matter what games, but where there were at least a couple where they don't call intentional grounding. There's no way it's one of those things where the quarterback is a blade of grass away. His knee is a blade of grass away from being sacked. They never want to take the sack. They risk throwing the ball somewhere, so they just launch it. It doesn't get near the line of scrimmage. It doesn't go anywhere near a player. And somehow yet they're still like, oh, no, there was a receiver somewhere in the area. So I'm thinking, well, how could Aguilar's be intentional grounding when the ball literally slipped out of his hand? And then a day later, I saw at least 3 instances flipping around on Sunday where there was absolutely intentional grounding and the refs decided to eat the flag. I can't understand. We talk about the same thing with, pass interference. We don't know what a defenseless receiver is. We don't know what fucking holding is anymore. We don't know what illegal contact is anymore. Guys, I do not know what intentional grounding is anymore. By the way, it killed that App State drive. They ended up punting on that drive, and they never got closer in that game. So not to say that the game would have been different, but it absolutely killed that drive, that call. I just don't know what intentional grounding is anymore, guys. I can't figure it out. I don't know if you guys can.
Well, the worst part about intentional grounding to me is it has that gray area worse than the play clock where they say you have to get the ball back to the line of scrimmage. But how many times have you seen guys just throw the ball into the ground nowhere near the line of scrimmage, and it's not even taken into account? Well, he's out of the pocket. It's okay. And he doesn't even get it anywhere near. Now, I don't think by the letter of the law it has to be there, but why not make it the letter of the law? That way it's cut and dry. It's almost like that's what's bothering me about the play clock. It's also, guys, I posted a bunch of things on Twitter this week showing like the Eagles tackles with their legs in the air at the snap before the snap's done. So how do you get by with this bullshit where it's close enough? And this close enough bullshit, it has to go. I mean, the NBA went to a thing. I don't know if you remember when the 24-second clock expired, they had that big red box all of a sudden that happened. Yeah. So you could see right away, oh, no, it's not out of his hands. And they'll do the frames where they're showing the ball still on his fingertips and everything else. In the NFL, you have this bullshit where you're given an extra click, you're given a grace period before moving backwards. I don't understand why we have all these gray areas and things that are very well defined.
Yeah, we've said that before. It might have been year 1 or 2 on the podcast that the play clock should actually look like an NFL shot or an NBA shot clock. Yeah. And that either if they want to give it a beat or whatever they call it after 0, that's fine. But then give it the beat and then have the red light come on so that we can see what, every official has their own sort of cadence for what that beat is. Some of them throw it quicker than others, but it's got to, you got to, if the red light comes on and you haven't snapped the ball, it plays over. You know what? That's it. The intentional grounding thing brings another thing to mind. And I've always thought this, I don't think I've ever articulated it before, but so the whole thing in the NFL, right, is the ball. Everything's about the ball. The ball has to cross the plane, and it doesn't matter, if it's just a tick of the nose, that's it. Before your foot is down, it's a touchdown. And the yardage doesn't matter where you are. It's where the ball is, when you're lunging for a first down. Did you get the ball there or not? Why the fuck when the quarterbacks are running forward, can they have everything but their pinky toe past the line of scrimmage and still, why is that rule like that compared to the other rules? They're like, oh, all he needs back there is just the back of his heel. That's all. I'm like, but that is so inconsistent with the rest of football.
Right. So you got a quarterback who's 6'9". He's got the advantage over a shorter quarterback. Yeah. He's further down the field, especially a guy like Mike Glennon, with his neck. His neck is 2 yards down the field, and he still hasn't thrown the ball yet.
It's funny you mentioned that, Cardone, because I feel like there's a couple of penalties that growing up, you heard very rarely. And now all of a sudden this year, intentional grounding and illegal man downfield are ones that I hear 2-3 times a game. And I wonder, is it because of these bad offensive lines? But I feel like those two penalties all of a sudden are so commonplace. But you're right, like, and there's no rhyme or reason as to what and why they are what they are. But they're so common now. Like I said, that was one I would hear maybe once every 4 games. I hear it all the time now.
Yeah. And it's weird. It's one of those calls that sometimes you see it where it doesn't look like a grounding and they call it and the opposite. So I can't figure it out. It's just it seems arbitrary. But you're right though. Sometimes the officials, those two you pointed out, Novak. Yeah, the illegal man downfield, I've never seen called as many times as this year. And then the grounding thing has become just as confusing as any penalty in all of football.
Well, and I'll give you one that I saw just 2 weeks ago, and it was Josh Allen on that horse collar. He flung the ball forward. It literally landed less than 2 yards away from where his receiver was. He was called for intentional grounding. This week, I saw someone going back, and I want to say it was in the Sunday or Monday night game. I don't know for certain, but it was one of those blown up screen passes. So what does the quarterback do? He throws it right into the ground, like literally at his own feet. He's got a receiver probably 4 yards downfield. That's considered close enough. He's nowhere near the line of scrimmage. He just tosses it there. If that's not an intentional grounding, how did you call intentional grounding on the play that Josh Allen got horse collared on? That's the thing that it doesn't compute the way it's so inconsistent. Yeah. And that's part of, I think, our problem with officiating as a whole is it's so inconsistent.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, in the second Giants-Patriots Super Bowl, remember on the first play of the game, the intentional grounding that Brady
took?
Sure.
To me, that a key part of intentional grounding is to avoid a sack. Brady had no one near him when he did that. He admitted there was no one open. I threw it into the ground down the middle.
Well, I think what Cardone said earlier. It was unintentional in the App State game. Shouldn't it be intentional? Like that's part of the word.
You're
intentional
right,
grounding.
That's the other thing I don't think I mentioned with the Aguilar play. He wasn't under pressure. He had a clean pocket around him. Went to deliver a ball. I think he just went to pull it back, and the ball slipped out of his hand. They showed it over and over. Especially since that was the case. It was raining steadily at that point. It was a wet ball. And he kept making a motion to the ref like the ball slipped out of my hand. Nope.
Yeah.
Intentional grounding. He wasn't running for his life. He was standing in a pocket.
Yeah. I've had to explain to lower, less educated fans why spiking the ball is an intentional grounding. And I've said, well, that's because they're not doing it to avoid a sack. Like, they're not, a sack isn't imminent, which is supposed to be part of the intentional grounding rule.
Right.
That's right.
Is that you're just getting rid of the ball so you don't get sacked. And I think that has sort of been forgotten as part of that rule too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, pet peeve?
Yeah, I do. I was, as Cardone was talking, I was actually going to use my illegal downfield pass as my pet peeve, but I decided to roll it into his. It would fit too well. No, my pet peeve though is a very short one. And I don't know when this happened. Again, we all have recency bias and short memories, but I don't feel like this was happening up until this year. So came to me on the bye week because there was no Giants game on. So I'm looking at my phone before the game starts at ESPN to see what games are on and kind of, setting up my menu for the day of games. And I noticed that you go to the feed with the stories, right? So about an hour before the NFL starts, all the stories on ESPN are about the player fits. You guys know what that means? I had to look it up.
No.
It's what they wore to the stadium.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like Burrow, Kelsey, and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. And not only are they doing it, which is fine. I feel like Cam Newton might have started it. Another great thing he brought to the game. But not only are they doing it, but it's a story on ESPN. And there's like 4 or 5 of them. It's like Kelsey dapper in black on way to stadium. And
God.
And then of course we get the third story down is whether or not Taylor Swift is expected at the game or not. This is an hour and a half before kickoff. This is what ESPN is covering.
Yep.
And not injuries, not last minute things that could change the game, not the line of the game. No, it's the player. It's called their fits. If for us old men who don't know, that's what that means. It's their fits.
John Facenda is rolling over in his grave.
Oh, can you imagine?
Steve Sable. Steve Sable's throwing up. Yeah.
Is that going to be like
Aaron Rodgers shows up in the dapper three-piece suit to the frozen tundra?
Travis Kelce in his skinny jeans.
It's the game is just every week. Every time I peel back a layer of the onion, the game is leaving me further and further behind.
We heard the comments that Brady made a couple weeks ago, right? There was one this week from LT, the legendary LT, the great Lawrence Taylor said something. I read it real quick. It wasn't that interesting an article, quite frankly, but basically just said, he goes, if I was playing today, he goes, I wouldn't last one game just because of the way the rules are defensively. The way, he said you can't tackle anybody. Yeah, you saw that, Scott? He just said he wouldn't be able to last one game. It's just a joke. So it just justifies what we think, feel, and say on this pod, that the legendary ex-ball players are saying. They recognize it, they see it, and they know. They would know more than anybody, right? I mean, because a guy like any of those old players, like imagine take any of those legendary players, especially on the defensive side of the ball, man. I don't know what they think about today's NFL. They think it's soft and just pussified of what's going on.
Of course they do.
I'll bet when they get together and chat, I bet the word soft gets thrown around an awful lot.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, it's funny you mentioned a couple of those things because it's like what is going on, not just with the NFL, but just in general with the way we handle things. I mean, it just seems like everything is done now for the appearance rather than the actual substance of it.
Yep. Style over substance.
Yep. Yeah. By the way, news came out today. David Tepper is making another good move for the Panthers, and he's no longer going to have training camp down in Wofford, South Carolina, which is in Spartanburg. He's going to have it now in Charlotte. So the good times keep rolling for the Panthers franchise. And this is coming on the heels this week of there being talk of things in the organization being like the Hunger Games, where assistant coaches were basically backstabbing coaches to try and move up the ladder.
Yeah. Be honest, I like that. Sounds like a cool.
Well, I mean, Sir Purr doesn't have to go down 85 now. No. Anytime I can get an opportunity to mention Sir Purr, I'm gonna do it.
If they had the real Hunger Games in there, Sir Purr's gonna last about 18 seconds.
Sir Purr.
Dude, it's my
favorite. Sir Purr is my favorite thing in all of sports, I think, to make fun of. Is there anything worse?
I will say this, that the flag carriers are probably going to get jacked before Sir Purr, so they're probably going to last the least. And then
I have a feeling the person inside of Sir Purr is much like one of the flag carriers.
So I don't have several pet peeves. I have a pet peeve and then I have a couple observations. I'm going to make the observation first. One observation first. I was watching the Syracuse Cornell basketball game on the ACC network last night, and the announcers, they weren't at the game. They were remote.
What?
They were remote at their houses, and they're calling the game off of the same feed that I'm watching. And I'm thinking to myself, we do a podcast. I could call the game. I could go, and from the 3-pointer there from Mintz, I could do that.
I never heard of this.
I don't even know how you report on certain things like injuries or like what the coaches are saying and stuff like that. I don't know.
I wonder. I'm curious if this would come to the NFL, because I think it diminishes the role of the sideline reporter if she's in her kitchen.
I mean, I will say that the only one noticing this on a podcast watching Syracuse Cornell might be you, Scott. But I mean,
might be the only person I
don't think the viewership is very high in that. Let's be honest.
Cornell.
I just thought that was bizarre. Like, so the reason I saw this is because Jim Boeheim was on his first halftime show, because he's now an analyst for the ACC network. So he was there on the halftime show, and these two people are talking to them from where their backgrounds are like this. It's got, behind them, they got the bookcase and everything else. And I'm thinking, oh, they're just, talking to Jim Boeheim. And then they go, all right, Jim, we'll see you after the game. And then they went and they called the game from their fucking houses.
On a couch.
From a couch.
We are spiraling as a society. I mean,
right.
We're cooked.
Does anyone need to go outside anymore? Is there any reason for anybody to leave the house?
No.
Pretty soon the NFL will be Madden, and every player just controls their likeness. So that, and the announcers sit at home and watch it. Maybe for the Super Bowl, the announcers be in the same living room with the players. I don't know.
I hope to God this is not a trend.
No,
I mean, come on. You got to have the commentators at the game. This is ridiculous. This is not COVID. What are we doing?
No.
What are we doing?
I know. And it's the ACC network, which is affiliated with the ESPN. So I thought it was. I actually watch it right now because Clemson's playing South Carolina. But it's like,
As much as I loved ESPN when it first came on, and I think it was like whenever I was like 10 years old when it came out, or 12. I think my TV was on that network for 2.5 years from the day it came on until the first time I changed it.
It's the greatest thing in the world.
They are ruining sports.
Yeah.
Not just football, just sports. ESPN has now gone over the hump and is now like the worst thing that happened to sports. And we haven't talked about it yet, and I have it lined up for a future pet peeve, but I am uncomfortable with how in bed the NFL and ESPN are with gambling right now. That's a tidy little relationship they all have going. They have shows on ESPN before the game sponsored by MGM, betting service and DraftKings.
DraftKings all over the place. Yeah.
That just stinks to me. I mean, that is, and some people might want to say it's a coincidence. I don't quite believe in coincidences. That, man, when the gambling community came up and finally accepted by the NFL, and it's when the officials suddenly got really shitty. It kind of all lines up.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
So my actual pet peeve is more or less, I was basing this on the Philly situation. So the way the league flip-flops week to week to me is disgusting. So last week, Philly they had the championship DNA blood. They were, on the road to the Super Bowl, and they lose a game to the 49ers. The 49ers who were playing well, the 49ers who also destroyed Dallas. And all of a sudden now we hear, well, Philly could be, they might, if they lose to Dallas this week, they're only going to be in the wild card chase. What is going on here in Philadelphia? What are we looking for here? And it's like, guys, don't overreact to wins. Don't, get too low after losses. Just take the season as it comes. If you remember, 49ers went through a string there. I think they lost 3 games in a row.
Yep.
And as Mike pointed out last week, they didn't have Trent Williams for those games. But the thing is, why are we getting so hyped over teams one week and then having to backtrack the next week if they lose? And it's definitely right. Right now, Philly has to go into Dallas. They could lose that game. And if they do, Dallas is going to be first place in the East, and Philly will be on the outside looking in, but they'll be in a wild card position. But as of last week, Philly was a sure shoe into the Super Bowl. I don't understand why we do this to the viewers, why we do this to the public. Just call the games and say, hey, Philly has a good shot to get there. That's about it. You don't have to make these guys out to be superheroes, talk about championship DNA and all this other, superfluous bullshit. And then a week later, talk about them. Oh, what's wrong in Philly? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Championship DNA. I love that one.
Yeah, championship DNA. No, it's a great point, Scott. I don't know why they have to do it, because we're listening and watching, right, as fans, regardless. It doesn't make sense. Eagles are a good point, right? I mean, 10-1, but playing a great San Francisco team and now going to Dallas, like, isn't there, like, as you look at those games before even last week, isn't there a chance, like, hey, they could lose those games, and it's like they're still good, they'd still be 10-3. they'd still be in the driver's seat, or they'd still be a chance to win the Division 1 seed, all that stuff. Okay, you're not going to fucking go 16-1. You're not. So like it's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy week to week. It doesn't make sense.
I wish I had it. I wish I had access where I could just easily sit here with like 6 monitors and hear someone say something and research it on another and like roll back. All right, I want to hear what this guy, Joe Schmo, just said to me, that the 49ers are a steamroller to the Super Bowl and the Eagles stink now. I want to wind back and find out what Joe Schmo was saying about the 49ers after they lost that third game.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had. I know it's possible. I just don't have the resources.
Right.
Darren's no help. So, we're doing the best we can here.
Darren, the intern, has given us no clips.
No, I'm not even sure what he does.
Yeah, he's a bum.
And then my third point, it's an observation. It was not a pet peeve, but there was something on in Congress. I don't know if it was a hearing or not, but it was talking about, men playing in women's sports. And basically, if you were to deny men playing in women's sports, you're transphobic, or you have transphobia. I don't get this whole, we talk about fairness in sports. Why is the viewpoint that men playing women's sports, why is that denying anyone anything? You have men's sports, you have women's sports. It's a very clear definition there. If you want to blur those lines, then go and have trans sports. I don't know what the outcome is there. It bothers me that there are people out there that actually say, and this was a quote from this week, females just need to learn to lose with dignity. Why? Let females compete. They shouldn't have to lose to a mediocre man who can't cut it in his own sport, coming down to women's sports and dominating.
They just didn't think the whole trans movement through. They tried to tell you men and women are the same. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but what about sports? Like, these guys are hurting these ladies. Well, no, they just went too far. They couldn't roll it back after that. To admit that they shouldn't be playing with women would be to admit their whole cause is a lie. So they're just stuck. They know. They go home at night and go, damn, if one more person tells me, should a woman be able to box Mike Tyson? Like, it's they just got in over their heads. They didn't think it all the way through.
I just think it's funny when they throw out the, like, you're transphobic. No, I want fairness in sports. Really, as a fan, I could care less who's out on the field. I just want to see fairness. I don't want to see some dude with a mustache beating women swimming and then, like, pumping his chest, going,
dunking him in the water. So I have to think we're going to get to a point where these men's records in women's sports are going to get wiped off the books. I really feel bad when I see things like this and thinking about, okay, like the swimming example is the most popular one. So what about the girl who finished just outside the bronze medal in some event that they had? She earned the bronze medal in women's swimming. The girl who got the silver earned a gold medal in women's swimming. She just happened to be not swimming against women when they were giving out the medals.
Right.
So we do have a couple questions this week. Both come from our favorite friend, Brian Peacock. And
I lit Dallas up pretty good last week. I was waiting for him to come back at me here.
Really didn't have a whole lot of shade on the Giants. He just asked, is TD Tommy the answer, and what is his ceiling? And I think DeVito, I'll start with this. I think DeVito's ceiling is very easy. He's a backup quarterback in the NFL. He might be a very capable backup quarterback in the NFL, and I think we'll find that out in the next few weeks. I don't think he's a starter. I think we were talking about Nick Mullins earlier. We're talking about some of these other backups. That could be Tommy DeVito. I have no idea if it is right now. Right now, he's actually at the lower end, I think, of backups, but we'll see how he proves himself.
Yeah, he's exactly that. He's nothing more than a mediocre backup. I mean, the ceiling, he's at it right now. I think. Yeah. He's at the ceiling.
Up against it pretty hard.
Yeah, there's nowhere for him to elevate right now. It's I think even if he starts to we still have 5 of these left. We still have 5 games left, and we'll see. I think he'll play fair the rest of the way, but as far as elevating his status, he's certainly not capable of starting anytime soon in this league for any of these franchises. And I think he's at his ceiling right now as a backup. He started as a 3rd string, so he's already gone up. He has elevated his status this year. So I think he's at it right now, Peacock.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's at his ceiling. 2 back-to-back wins in the NFL is probably more than this guy could have ever hoped for. Yeah. Coming out of college and all that. And he seems like a nice kid, a good guy. He's doing all the right things. He's giving back to the community. But, is he the answer? He's the answer if the question is who probably shouldn't be on this roster next year.
Yeah.
If he's the answer to, once we get a draft a quarterback and still have Daniel Jones is someone we hope to never see again. No offense. Seems like a nice guy. I would love to see him go somewhere, some quarterback starved team and catch on as a 3 and find some more time to play. He seems like a good kid. I just don't. When he's here, that means we're in big trouble. We have not constructed a capable roster.
I wasn't going to ask this one on air, but then I thought there's some funny responses that can come out of this. So Peacock also asked, if DeVito, Jones, and Eli are in prison, which one is going to get pimped out first? So my thoughts on this were, look, Jones and Eli are just going to be sitting in a corner, basically stone-faced. DeVito with his fucking headband on, he's going to get ass raped right away.
Yeah.
Unless the only unless here is unless someone fears that he might be tied to like Tony Soprano in the game in the mob.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they think he's made. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know if he tries to pull off that Loverboy headband though. He is going down. There's no question.
Working
Mike
for
Rito
the weekend,
headband.
baby.
Yeah. 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 Pimped out. I don't think. I think Eli's too smart to get pimped out.
Yeah, and Jones he's a stoic robot.
Yeah.
So
Jones has been pimped out by the Giants, and he is sort of in prison. So
yeah,
here we are.
Stoic robot, stun robot. I think I was going for either one of those, but yeah, stun robot. That 8.2 IPA.
The new craft beer.
Exactly. It's a new IPA. Stun robot, but yeah, we'll pimp out. DeVito's getting pimped out, no doubt.
You guys got anything else this week?
I want to do a quick shout out. I'm wearing my East Carolina gear for my daughter Carly. She is 20 today, so she's a pod listener.
Happy birthday!
I want to wish my girl a happy birthday as she's a listener, and I have a feeling she's at ECU right now, probably not eagerly waiting to listen to this podcast, but probably out having a good time.
Yeah.
You know who I think went to East Carolina? LG Crumpler.
Crumpler.
No, Carlester Crumpler went there. Not
Carlester. LG did not.
No.
Don't
Carlester
ever mention
LG's
his name
brother?
ever again.
Carlester. I mean, how many Crumplers are tight ends? Of course, he was his brother. Carlester Crumpler was an ECU grad.
That's a real name.
Yeah.
Carlester.
It's not any better than Algae, I guess. I don't know.
Really? We picked that one to pick on for some reason. Both pretty bad. Now, I have a prediction for the game outside of score. I don't know if you guys like Jalen Hyatt is really fast. He'd be one of the top 5 fastest players in the NFL right now. The Giants have not handed him the ball this year on any kind of reverse or even a throw, behind the line of scrimmage throwback thing. I think they got to get that mixed into the game. I could see that coming.
Hey, I have to go back to the archives, but I think when we did our outrageous predictions in the preseason, I said Jalen Hyatt would average 20 yards a catch. He's damn close to it right now.
It's like 19.5, right?
Yeah.
It's not bad. I think mine was Barkley would lead the NFC in yards scrimmage yards, I think. If I have that right. I have to go back to the tape. Like Warner Wolf. Let's go to the tape.
I have no memory of making that prediction, so I'd be curious to find out what it was. I'm pretty sure I didn't have Tommy DeVito would start the entire second half of the season. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that.
No,
I should have. In hindsight, seems so obvious now, but yeah.
So we are the three Angry Giant fans and a Jet fan. This has been your host, Scott, Giant Mike, and Cardone with Jets fan Novak. And next week we'll be back to talk about the Giants pack and the Jets Texans. Anything else?
We're good.
All right. Have a good weekend. We will see you next Wednesday.
See you.
See you.